Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Flatirons Syndicate Motorsports Podcast. This show is brought to you by Flatirons Tuning, your source for any aftermarket or OEM Subaru parts. Be sure to check out our store at flatironstuning.com and stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.
We'll see how that holds up.
Well, and just like for rally, I mean, you've got to get into it. You've got to, like, what does it actually take to get into a rally, to run a rally, to finish a rally?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much, that's such a steep learning curve that,
Yeah.
you know.
I can't do it, and I've been doing it for a long time.
It's tricky. It's complicated. That's what we're here to talk about. Yeah.
Really? Okay, yeah.
We got recorded, so.
Yeah, good a place to start as any.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, well, welcome back, everybody, to the Flatirons Syndicate Podcast. We've got with us today, we've got Tasso and Scott in the shop. Scott, driver of the Flatirons Tuning rally car and Pikes Peak car. And, well, want to bring you guys on because as we're kind of leading into this and we're talking about rally cars and finishing rallies and stuff like that, well, we had Rally Colorado, and Scott, we did not have the outcome that you were hoping for. It was a good rally up until
It
the point
wasn't.
where it wasn't. So I guess just, maybe cliff notes, what happened.
The weekend started out great. Saturday we had a pretty good pace, and the car felt really good. Had no issues. The roads are really variable this year. They graded them, which they hadn't done in the past, and so kind of slippery, and just you'd go into a corner and have good grip, and then 3 corners later you were pushing to the outside of the corner, and so it made it more challenging. But we ended up Saturday kind of where I wanted to be, and went into Sunday, and first couple stages felt good, and then Valley of the Gods, which has been our nemesis, we went off on that stage 2 years ago, and that ended our rally. And this year, about 5 corners into the start of that stage, we're kind of a downhill technical section, and we actually slid off and got stuck, and took about 4 pulls to get us out. So back on the road, and hey, we'll be okay. But you always kind of have this sense of urgency after you've killed some time.
Want to make up some of the time
Yeah.
that's lost. Yeah.
So pushing, it's not super hard, but we're probably 3 corners after the corner that I went off 2 years ago. Came in, we're about 100 yards from the finish, which I didn't know, but again came into, I think it was a left 5 that tightened, and we just pushed into this berm and just hit it the wrong way, and it kicked our rear end out and then flipped us over.
Right. So
Ended up on the wheels, but
the car rolled, and the car looks pretty rough. Honestly, seeing the pictures, the best news of the day was that you and co-driver Ryan Scott were okay. It's definitely, it's never fun probably to be in a crash like that.
no, and it was so frustrating because I just really felt good about the weekend, and had been looking forward. Rally Colorado is probably my favorite rally, just the combination of technical and some fast stuff, and typically no trees to hit, so it's relatively safe.
It's pretty open. Like
it's very open,
it's
yeah.
in the, what do you call it, like high desert
High
kind of?
desert, yeah, exactly. And it was super warm this year, so that made it more challenging with dust, and again, somewhat slippery in some corners.
Well, and explain warm, because like Rally Colorado, it is hot.
It's a dry heat.
It's a dry heat. Okay.
I don't know.
But I think it was, I think 97 to 98 degrees.
Yeah.
So,
I just
it was
remember-
funny because Steve Biss, who was in his, I think his second event in his new Volkswagen, he decided to throw the AC back in it the week before the event, which is probably a smart move on his part.
Yeah.
In Rally Colorado in the past, because I don't even have, in the red car, I didn't have ventilation. I didn't have a roof scoop or anything like that, and it was just hot in there. And I'd come in, that year, the time control workers all had coolers full of ice water, like bottles of water, and I'd pour it just down my back. and by the time I got to the small of my back, it wasn't cold anymore. It was just hot. Like and it was no more wet pouring a water ball down my back than it already was. It was already completely soaked.
Yeah.
It was so hot. Coming in like nauseous.
Didn't you say
services and stuff?
Wasn't it Rally Colorado that Abby, your co-driver, her shoes started to melt?
Yeah, the sole melted off of her racing shoes.
Yeah.
I don't know. We killed ECUs there and alternators there for heat too.
Yeah. So it is hot. It
is
just
hot. It never really bothered me this time, but and the car ran great. And we had one episode on one of the climbs up where it started to get a little warm, but
yeah. Well, and it sounds like it was pretty fast this year. So the road grading, maybe just kind of explain what that is and how that changes the roads a little bit.
Well, I think it kind of moves a lot of the pebbly, gravelly stuff away.
Okay.
And it just steers up the road and it steers up more dust. And that's where you saw, slick stuff was not the real hard gravel sections, and even there, and I think just with the heat, there's no moisture in there and there's
just baked.
nothing holding it. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't make a difference because when they grade it, I'm guessing you lose a lot of the ruts or like the tire line or anything like that. It's it's very
smooth.
Flat.
And then we were starting third on the road, so we didn't have a lot of sweeping going on. So
okay. Yeah, you were doing the sweeping.
We were doing the sweeping. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we ran the same tires on Sunday, and I think those were probably getting pushed to their limits.
Okay.
We ran a really hard compound this year, and with a hardened sidewall, which was good, because I always have, we flatted on recce, which is notoriously the story for us.
Right.
But no flats on stages, so that was good too. Ooh. Everything was going right until it wasn't.
Right. Well, and with rally, I mean, and Tasso, you kind of went through this, and you've tried and suffered through the trials and tribulations of it. I mean, that's one of the challenges with rally is that it can be just really good right up to like a point where something takes an immediate shift, and then that can like cost you seconds, cost you minutes, or it can take you out of the rally.
Yeah, and the mentality for Sunday was, hey, we're a minute down from the car in front of us, so we're probably not going to make up ground there. We're a minute and a half ahead of the fourth place car, but you can't hold. I mean, you just mentally you can't go into a stage and say I'm going to go 80%. I mean, it just doesn't. It's tough for me anyway, and typically I've never seen a rally driver back off and have success.
That was one of the questions. Is like, when you're going into a rally and you're putting stages together, do you factor in like the attrition or the risk level, or you just drive every stage to the best of your ability?
I think you just drive it to the best of your ability. I think that's a safer way, and it's, if you're backing off, I think you're not concentrating and committing when you need to.
Yeah. What do you think, Tasso?
I don't know, because I go through the same mental warm-up. We have a pretty, set routine in the car before we get going to kind of get my headspace right and stuff like that. So I do that the same. The only thing I can really alter to vary that speed is like braking points is the main thing I'll focus on. So if I'm trying to find time, I'm almost always pushing braking points and then getting back on the throttle points. And that also is a place where kind of I found that I can make some adjustment to how aggressively I'm driving and kind of what that, but you can't approach it. I mean, I agree, you can't approach it as backing off so much as changing finite points, because if you back off, then you back off mentally, and focus is such an important part. It's a tough thing.
How much of your mental focus, like when you're driving, how much of your focus is just driving the car, being in the moment? Is it just 100%? Is it more than 100%?
I always said it's the most focusing activity I do in my life.
Sure. Right. Because that's probably what it has to be, because you're paying attention to so many little details of information that you're getting in that driver's seat. From the steering wheel,
you've got somebody talking in your ear, and
you're
riding with somebody, which changes the dynamic.
I feel like it's 100%, but Abby sometimes after runs, I'll tell her like, oh, did you see that spectator with pants down or something like that? And then she's like, I didn't see anything. What are you doing? You should be focusing on the road. I'm like, I don't know, it's there, right? Or
Right.
I've thrown up like the shot at some photographers and stuff like that before, and so I guess maybe I have like some subconscious spare brain power because I'm not really doing these things consciously so much as.
It is funny though. I think drivers see more things than obviously than most co-drivers.
Well, maybe because of that hyper focus.
Yeah.
Like you're probably shifting through like a whole bunch of different sensory inputs as you're just driving the car and doing everything, and you've got to be paying really close attention to where you are on the road, what's happening with the corner that you're getting into, the corner that you're coming out of. So anybody like a photographer, spectator, or deer, whatever, I mean, you're probably going to catch it because you're just really hyper focused on what you're seeing.
I wonder if what it is isn't so much a lack of focus seeing those things, as you're so tuned in with all of your sensory inputs that you pick up extra stuff just as a result, because it's so much stuff that you're bringing in at once. Like I'm feeling it's part of why I'm so bad at driving a sim, is because so much of driving a car fast I think is all seat of the pants and stuff like that, right? And feeling, and so I'm feeling like, oh, this corner something felt a little weird. Was that the tires? Are they going off? Or is that the surface? Was that different? Or is that a strut getting loose? Or what should I do with my suspension next run? I won't think about that right now. I'll go ahead and put that out of my mind.
And that's all happening as you're driving.
Yeah, but it's all in a constant flow. Like it would look like a hose, a garden or a fire hose of information, right? But it's all like a constant stream of just, you're like a sponge of information and everything about you. You're hearing things like, I got a lot of gravel spray on the bottom of the car on there. That surface must be going off in that corner because it's starting to pull more gravel up, or maybe my wheel speed was too high, or it's just it's constantly.
It's almost like a stream of consciousness.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, people talk about flow state and stuff like that.
What's the red mist?
Well, the red mist is where you start dampening down all the warnings.
That's right. No, ignoring, like pushing it off to the side.
Is that a wheel going off? I don't care.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think, Scott? Do you agree that it's just kind of like this, like hyper-focused stream of consciousness that you kind of get into that state when you're driving?
Yeah, like from the start.
Yeah. Because Scott, I think I have this right. The first rally that you did, the first full rally as a driver, was Rally Colorado 2010?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
Okay. From then to now, do you prepare in any different way? Does it feel different when you get behind the driver's seat now compared to like in the first couple times you're going out?
Oh, definitely. I've got into a routine in terms of just mentality and what happens at the start line and what my mind's going through to get ready. We always talk about the first few corners. Now that we have recce, we describe every stage. So we have a brief description that reminds me of certain things on the road. Ryan Scott, my co-driver, has some pretty unique notation that might warn us at the end of a 100-meter stretch. We might label it as a 105-meter, and anything with a 5 at the end of it means there's kind of a gotcha or a technical caution or something coming up, and just things like that. It's really helped me. And then I'm still getting better at it, but left foot braking and so much going on with my feet, and that's really become a big enjoyment for me. Just how much control there is with the car, and how it compares to skiing in terms of weighting and unweighting, and I've just learned to enjoy that part of it. That's what I love about rally.
Is it easier now to get into the mindset? It sounds like you found more and more tools that you can.
Yeah, and there's more confidence and more comfortableness with the car. That's why it's been frustrating over the last year. We've had some DNFs related to just mechanicals, and I felt like I was over that hump where I was making some dumb mistakes, and
that probably takes you out of that, right? Because then you end up, it probably gets it so you're paying attention to the car, but for more of the wrong reasons, and then that's maybe what you're talking to a minute ago, where you're distracted because the stream of consciousness that gets you into that flow state is broken up because now you're paying really close attention, but to a lot of these little details that are
and I found that I was trying to kind of blocked that out this year with Rally Colorado, but with the heat, I was constantly worried about overheating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we always typically get a flat, so any different feel with the tires or with the car or any noise, is that a flat? Is that a flat? And Ryan
Right.
was doing the same thing. We had a piece of the front bumper come off, and it got caught up under the car, and it made the worst noise. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Another flat.
Yeah.
And then it went away, and it was like, okay, probably just Under Armour or something just blew off, but we're
Flat
good.
fixes itself.
Yeah, right.
Fix itself, yeah. Mm. Well, and so knowing how Rally Colorado ended, how big of a challenge is it to come back from an incident like that? And that's, I mean, Tasso, you haven't really been back behind the driver's seat yet, but how much does having something where like you roll the car or have an accident like that, does it affect how you approach the next event? Or
You know, I think just going into the next event, I'll just convince myself I'm going to be smarter about my driving. But, you know, that's rally. This was my 5th roll, so it's not something I haven't experienced.
right?
And
Okay.
thankfully, we came out
Yeah.
unharmed. You know, Tasso
Had some stuff.
bumped around
Yeah.
a little bit. I mean, the first hit definitely got my attention, and I figured I'd have a sore neck maybe a day or two later, which happened to me at X Games where we took a jump wrong and slammed my neck into my notes, and it felt fine until about 3 days later, and it was just a 2-week recovery with a really bad neck. But
Well, I mean, that's
this one,
I mean, cage design has come a long way. The
Yeah.
safety gear has come a long
yeah,
way.
the definitely the halos on the seats.
Yeah,
Or
the
big.
the,
Yeah.
the halos on the seat
Yeah,
basically to go
right.
around the helmet, and then the Hans.
And the Hans as well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, does that? I would imagine that, like, knowing that you've got that level of protection, that's not a bad thing.
No,
That helps kind of maybe
it helps,
kind of
yeah.
keep that risk threshold out of your mindset.
Right.
Since you have rolled the car before, like, is there anything you do, like, a thought process, or like, is it something where you just want to get a stage under your belt?
That's, yeah, I mean, I'm antsy now
Okay.
to get
Get
back in
back
the
on the
car
seat,
and
just
just
get rid of the bad memories.
get rid of the bad memories and,
Yeah.
you know, so.
What do you think, Tasso? What do you?
Yeah, no, it's a thing I've thought a lot about, and I've spoken about before on the podcast, and I think that it helps me to kind of speak about it candidly, to kind of keep, because there's a huge mental side to all this stuff, right?
Mhm.
So much of what we're doing relies on not only your ability to focus, but also your ability to kind of like put certain thoughts out of your mind, to commit to doing some stuff that's actually pretty dangerous. And it's a thing I've been really curious about. I think back to my downhill bike racing days. I had a friend who was really fast going up World Cup, all this kind of stuff, got a ride and everything, and had never really had a bad crash. He had like horrible looking crashes, but not from like a consequence to his body kind of aspect. And then it wasn't even on the bike. He was skiing and just did a knee, like an ACL or something like that. And it put him off for, 8 to 12 weeks of, rehab and stuff like that. And he never went as fast again on a bike. Because I think he kind of realized his own, all of our own mortality and fragility and stuff like that. And so it's, obviously something on the bike. I've had plenty of experience with a bike injury right now. But on the car, I'd yet to have like a injury-inducing accident. And so I'm really kind of conscious of that for myself and what that's going to look like coming back. I did, like, as soon as I could, get back into a car and go slide around a bit just to see if, like, even with, like, the vestibular injury I had, even, like, do I still have that seat of the pants feel that I hold in such high regard for driving a car fast? And I did, and it was good. It was really, like, I left that day, immediately reassured that, okay, I can keep working on this. I think I got over that hurdle. Time to keep working on, overcoming more hurdles to get back to it, kind of thing. So it's a thing. Like, coming back, it's definitely on my mind. I have a pretty robust risk management process in my brain, in terms of how I approach like any of these kind of action or action adjacent kind of sports. It's very much, I'm not like for like the moto dudes out there, like a Seth Enslow, where it's just like all balls and no skill and no process, where you just
brute force.
What gear did you go off that dune, Seth? Like, I don't know, really fast and like, break myself off kind of thing. But I've always like work up to a speed, work up to a jump, work up to or whatever kind of person. And so that it may be that I get knocked back that process a little bit because of this, and I have to work my way back up those last couple steps that it ratcheted back. I don't know. We'll see. It's all stuff that's on my mind really openly, and I try and talk about it openly. To I think the mental side of this sport is really important. It's not just bolt on go fast parts. And and if
there's
only
a lot
I'd spent more, I would have gone faster. But there's a lot of like, we both talked about now we have a process for like focusing up on the line, a routine. We talked about these kind of things. Because those are so important, I think it speaks a lot to how important that is in this sport in order to deliver. You can go drive and just have fun, whatever, right? But if you try and turn up that just a little bit more, then it becomes more and more important to have those processes.
Yeah. So Scott, you talked about, kind of related to that, how you're finding different tools to control the car, like your left foot braking. You're really dialing into the weight transfer of the car to actually control the car, and that's something I think it's safe to say that this is something you can kind of only experience in the rally car, or maybe in the race car. It's not something that you experience on the street, really.
Not really, no.
Is getting to that level of using the car and controlling the car, is that part of the excitement and the draw to get out there and run the cars that way?
Oh yeah, big part of it.
Big part, yeah. Is that it? So when you have kind of like what Toss was saying with the other guy, where you can have an incident where that could throw you off of coming back and getting another car and getting back out on the trail. Is that the enjoyment that you get from driving the car? Is that a driving force to just get back out there, to motivate you to put this thing that happened that wasn't great behind you, to just get back in and try and find that level of control and that level of driving again?
Yeah, I've already put the accident behind me, and really what stands out for me for Rally Colorado is all the high points and how I really felt comfortable in the car. I don't love the speed side of it. Like 100 Acre Wood has a lot of high speed stuff in the forest, and it's always intimidating to me, but I felt comfortable at Rally Colorado. I wasn't lifting as much on some of the faster sections, and that's really been a big part of my learning curve the last year, is the 5s and 6s in terms of the corners, which typically are flat. I'm notoriously lifting all the time, and my co-driver Ryan's been really good about that in terms of coaching. He's a driver as well, so he understands the dynamics of what goes on in a car. He's driven Baja, and he did road racing, and he'll call me out on stuff if I'm coasting, which means none of the car's working. He'll call me out on that. Hey, you're coasting. Get on the throttle, get on the brakes, do something, but make the car work.
Yeah.
And that's been really good, and just pointing out lines, and that Scott, that last corner you entered too early, or we talk about it. He videotapes everything, so we're constantly watching videotape, and so.
Is focusing on the positives. I would imagine that's a great tool to kind of get into a good mindset, to get back into the process, to get another car together and get back out there. Yeah, Tasso, because we've talked about how getting back, building another car can take a little bit of time. So Scott, we've already got next car lined up, so you've basically got the next event on the schedule.
Well, yeah, I think I was still reeling from the rollover standing out there on that stage, and I was getting text messages from my crew with that car. Hey, we found a car for sale. Well, wait a minute, I'm still thinking about the roll. I'm looking at this.
Yeah. Taking a bottle of water first.
Yeah, can I get a bottle of water? Yeah.
But so Tasso, as your process is taking a little bit longer, is that something that you're doing? Is trying to focus on the positives, on the enjoyment, on the good times, to kind of keep the motivation going?
Yeah, and other stuff too, other forms of racing, like downhill biking and stuff like that. gone back to a bit to kind of keep that mindset sharp, keep the race motivation sharp, stuff like that. And there's a lot to life that because I'm such a small time operation, most of the time it's just me in the garage kind of working on stuff kind of thing.
Right.
I've put a lot of other life stuff off for several years now that it's good to like keep up with and kind of make sure certain people feel appreciated and stuff too. So it hasn't been all bad, the extra time it's taking, but certainly remembering good times is a good motivating factor for me. Like Land's End was just this last weekend, and looking at some people had such a good time out there, and it's a really fun race, and it's a fun road, it's a fun group of people. There were new faces, old faces come back after a break and stuff like that. Good folks having a good time. So like that's constantly motivating for me to kind of like think about that stuff and like, man, I want to get back out there.
Right.
I should go tear down that motor and go steal those heads from that thing or whatever,
Right.
or something. So it's yeah, I don't know. I love all forms of racing, and so it's not hard for me to like remember to stay motivated to do it.
Yeah. So Scott, you'd mentioned with the old car, I guess at this point, that there was some mechanical issues that you worked through. Finally, like for Rally Colorado, had worked through a lot of those mechanical issues. Got back into good driving, and you're finding these new tools to control the car. With a new car, like I know the Tasso, you've got a lot in mind with this new car. Is like when you have a car that you're running for a lot of events for a lot of years, the advantage is you get to know the car. Sometimes the disadvantage is, well, you get to know the car. Like there's some things that are just not quite what you wanted it to be, or just never worked quite the way that you wanted. Is there an excitement for getting the new chassis, getting into the new car, and trying some things, and then maybe seeing if this new build, this new chassis has something to it that is going to let you like find a new tool, a new technique to drive the car, and maybe find even a little bit more speed?
I don't know. I mean, this is kind of new territory for me. So really, it'll just be a matter of, I've driven the car, but I haven't driven it at speed on dirt. So that's really just get out there and get in the car and see how it feels.
Get to know you, right?
I this wasn't a planned
right
transition, obviously.
Right.
And we talked about the other car being kind of tired and maybe time for a change, but probably happened sooner than I had planned.
Sure.
It is what it is, and
well,
I'm excited to.
You never
forward.
plan for these things.
No.
No. And if you do, I think you've got to screw loose. Like, I've got to go and do these stages.
Think about the future, but if you're sitting there on a second car ready to go, then I don't know what you're doing with your headspace at that point.
Right.
What's your new car? Is it? I haven't. Are you announcing? Is that what this
sure.
is?
Well, we can.
Okay.
I mean, it's another GDWRX. It's a 2002, but it's got a facelift on it.
Yeah, it's got an 06 front end on it, STI gearbox,
and 2.5 liter engine.
Yeah.
So that'll be the first time that we've run with the 2.5, which will be interesting. So it's an 06, a complete 06 swap in the car.
Okay.
But it's basically the same GD chassis sedan.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's gonna. Probably by the time it's all said and done, it's going to look very, very similar to the outgoing car.
Yeah, it should be somewhat familiar territory then.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a drastic change. And it's log booked, and I think his last event was 100 Acre Wood. So
relatively recently run.
Yeah.
There was one guy that said, "Oh, you guys should run a Legacy this time. You never see those guys out there."
Dibs.
Well, sure. It was one of the things I thought about when he initially mentioned that. Is like. It makes a lot of sense, and it's good that it is still a GD chassis because we've got so much
stuff,
like parts and spares for that. Like it would be really hard to switch platforms.
It's one of the main reasons I focus on 0405 for the next one is because I already have like headlights, taillights, hood, fenders, bumper stuff that all a bunch of consumables that fit that particular face style.
Yeah.
So.
You get invested in a chassis like that, and then you're pretty invested in it. Like all the spare tires and the brakes and the suspension, and it's nice to keep a chassis where you can move all that stuff over.
That has been for me a lot of like the hang up with this new build is switching to like the later hub style.
Oh yeah.
And so like I sold off a bunch of 5x100 parts, and
Yeah.
we'll still have to buy a lot of 5x114 stuff, and the suspension lowers at least on the front. We're able to swap thanks to Cusco, so that wasn't too big of a hit. But that's what I am changing a decent amount of like driver interface and car dynamic kind of stuff for staying with essentially the same chassis. I do have some changes coming up, and that's something that also has been on my mind about this is the red car was home. Like it was my daily. I rally crossed it, I stage rallied it, I hill climbed it, I took Abby out for dates in it and stuff like that.
There's some history
we
there.
would go get coffee in that thing and stuff like that. So it was like just as comfortable as you are in whatever car you drive to work in every day kind of thing. That's how comfortable I was in that red car. I've been road trips in it. So even after it was, in race seats and stuff. So
That's crazy.
I'm very like, oh no, what if whatever speed I had was just a result of having this car that I was like super in tune with, and maybe I won't be fast ever again because I switched to something else, and it's okay.
Yeah, you can't let yourself go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Well, let's, as we're wrapping up here, let's look to the future. So Scott, obviously we've got the car, and it is, as we're recording this, it is just the beginning of August in 23. Do you have events on the horizon? What are your plans for the rest of the season?
We're shooting for Temple Canyon, which is at the end of August.
It's a hill
shakedown, hill climb. And then hopefully Prescott, and then Ridge Rally, and maybe LSPR, which is one of my favorites.
So a few more rallies.
Yeah, a few more rallies. Yeah.
Tasso, how about you? What is the latest with your car? Do you have an event on the horizon yet, or is it still a little bit too far?
Yeah, I'm shooting for Temple.
At the end of the month, huh?
We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I got a lot of labor-intensive projects. I'm building a harness for it from scratch, and so I've been talking with some people about maybe
ECU harness.
Yeah. Like all wiring for the headlight to tail light to engine management to battery, everything. So that's something I haven't ever done straight. Grafted stuff together, but not from scratch before. So I'm looking at ways that I can make that process more efficient by enlisting help of some folks. I'm still hoping to make a race this season.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
It may be a race with like the trunk from the last car and borrowed wheels and this, that, or whatever, but
shakedown's a shakedown.
Shakedown's a shakedown. So
how many hill climbs are left?
2 Temple and another Monarch.
Okay.
Monarch's at least in end of September or something like that. So
You got a shot.
Got a shot. That's a pretty one too. Aspens are turning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful up there.
It's beautiful there in that time of the year. So that'd be cool. We'll see. I'm reminding myself to be patient right now.
Right. Got to take the time to get it all together right, because
it'll be good.
It'll pay off.
There is stuff happening. It's not just me sitting on twiddling my thumbs. You're
not just coasting.
There is stuff happening. I'm not just coasting. I'm making the car build work. So.
Good deal. Cool. Well, keep after it, and stay tuned. We'll see how Scott gets on with the new rally car. Hopefully, the hill climb goes well, and I don't know, establish a new future. Maybe Scott, that pick something up from Tasso here, like start driving it to work every now and then. Just get move into it a little bit more.
Right. Go on some dates in your other car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sure. My wife would love that.
Yeah, I bet you would. Maybe not.
One ride with Ken Block, and that was enough for her.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support as always. And until next time, stay tuned to Flatirons Tuning. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the Flatirons Syndicate Motorsports Podcast. Once again, we'd like to let you know that your support is what makes this show possible. Be sure to check out our online store at flatirons.com for any of your aftermarket or OEM Subaru parts needs. And as always, stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.